Alright, let's render up a couple objects here. First one I'm going to do is a sphere up here. Whether you're drawing from observation or whether you're just making it up, you know, as an illustration or whatever, you always want to, number one, is kind of denote that light source and where it's coming from. I'm going to have my light source coming from the upper left here. And what I will do, I will denote this kind of level 1 in terms of the amount of light that's hitting. That's going to be the lightest. And then following the shape of the sphere a little bit, this might be, if that's 1, this might be 2, might be 3, 4, and then the shadow would be 5. Now if you're working from observation, you might notice some reflection up into here, where you'll get a darker area to here, to the bottom portion of it, and then you might get actually a lighter area within there. We're just going to do a gradation in a more logical way, and I use my intuitive skills a lot of times when I'm rendering, and I'm not necessarily trying to always do a photoreal sort of drawing, so I can filter out all those different levels and reflective surfaces that are coming off of something and just make it read as a three-dimensional object and not try to render the hell out of it, alright? So it's okay to do that. Now, even though this is a sphere, I'm going to use this 45-degree hatch, my go-to, and I stay consistent. I don't suddenly start curving my stroke just to match the shape of the object, like in a cross contour way. I stay consistent with my stroke. And I'll just come in here. I'm using ink. Let me get it going here. Starting light with that texture pulled apart. And then that's kind of good for level 2. I'll start to come in here now. For level 3, it's okay if your angle goes a little bit different. You're going to get a little bit of a crosshatch effect, and that's okay. I'm going to build up just a hair more for level 4, and then I'll build just even yet a little bit more. I'm going to make it a little more dramatic. I'm going to build into this just a hair more. Couple shots that go across that level 1, and just build into this until I get the desired darkness to get a sense of this thing reading three-dimensionally. I'm overlapping the edge of the form, and I'm trying to stay as consistent as possible. Level 5 here, and as you layer this hatch, if it varies the angles just a little bit, that's okay. We're going to get really dark up into this, up against the object. Really build value, and you're going to have a desire, you're going to get impatient as you build up texture to where you're going to want to pick up just a big thick marker or something like that and fill this in. I'm done. You don't want to do that. You want to stay as consistent with your line weight as possible, but texture wise we want to try and stay as consistent. You can get away with it at times and by varying your thickness of your line for your texture, but I would really be careful about that. But that's all kind of a 45-degree hatch. It varies just a little bit. We don't suddenly start changing it up. We just want to stay consistent, even for a curved surface. A little bit of a varied stroke happening here too. But the idea is that it's starting as kind of a 45. And generally, when you do a shadow, it's going to be the darkest part, and it's going to be darkest up against the object, and then it might kind of filter out a little bit as you get away from the object, not be quite as dark. But keep your texture consistent, stay confident with it. Let's try this cube here. Same thing, I'm always kind of pulling my light source up here. I determine that. It's kind of a roughened shadow. With shadows, you just want to get close. If you're just doing an illustration of something, if you're working from observation, obviously you can see the shadow, you can see exactly what it's doing, but if you're doing an illustration where you're just dreaming something up, you just got to get close to fool the eye. It doesn't have to be perfect, all right? So our light source coming through here, so I might talk about this face as being like a 1, a 2, since we're pulling the shadow back this way. This might be our 3, and then the shadow is kind of a 4. Now, even within the surfaces, then I can change value. It might be, you know, 2 towards the center, but to really get good contrast between this surface and this surface, I might darken up to be a, you know, a 2.5 into the corners or something like that. And this little, I'm here to talk about this connecting. But here, let me start. I'm going to do my 45 again. I'm going to start light across the 2, across the 3, and right across our shadow. Again, if you end up getting a little bit of a different angle, it's okay, because I'm working kind of fast. I'm going to go one more time, just a little bit darker on the 2. And then yet darker. I'm using like a graphite Prismacolor pencil so I can push down a little bit harder. Another layer on the 3. And a couple more layers on the 4. Pushing down yet a little bit harder. Building nice darkness into the shadow. Now I can vary that darkness on a face here. And remember, I'm overlapping the edges. So I might go just a little bit darker up into the corner, then this creates a nice contrast between this lighter face and here. And a little bit darker into this one. Same thing with the 3, a little bit darker up into the corner. And darker down into this corner. So you vary your value even within the face. I'm going to go really dark along this edge so I get good contrast. I want to make sure we get good contrast between one face and the other so it reads 3-dimensionally. Same thing with the shadow, just a hair more. Pushing a little bit harder. Now the top we've left as a 1, where the majority of the light's going to land. But I like to, it's called connect. It's kind of up on its own on an island out here. And sometimes you want a really hot highlight and you leave it completely white. But I like to just to have a couple strokes, boom, 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 come across it as a way to connect this texture and this texture, everything kind of connecting together. So you kind of root it into the drawing. And I just call that connect. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, using a 45-degree hatch. I can't write. Let's try this one down here. I'm going to beef it up just a little bit. We'll use some charcoal on this. I just turned it on its side. Light source again was coming from here. Here's kind of the shadow that's happening there. Pushing even harder yet for this darker back area. And you learn with charcoal you can cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. And then again the shadow nice and dark coming over here. So we can study value really quick with just a little bit of charcoal. That's why these great mass gesture studies where we can quickly just touch the top here, barely. I'll reinforce the edges of the darker area here. And I'd probably come in with an eraser or with like a kneadable eraser. And I just pull out a little bit of this so you get good separation with the shadow. Kneadable eraser is nice to pull out and turn in a subtractive way. You can actually roll it across the surface and it'll pull just a little layer out. A kneadable is more subtle in the way it pulls, so as opposed to like a pink eraser or a plastic eraser will be more dramatic in how it pulls out the it's kind of just smudging it now in terms of how it pulls out the material. Use it across here. Now we're adding a little smudge now, but you get the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4. Touch the top just a hair, and we get value change. Using a little bit of smudge, using a little bit of no smudge. We use some scribble on this. Again, my light source is up here, so where I'm at like kind of a 1, a 2, and then like a 3 for the shadow. You start to work through this. I just nail the whole thing, overlap my edges a little bit, and then as I change value, really start to dig in and build into the areas that I want darker with this scribble technique. Start to build it into the shadow more. We're going to put our shadow even darker. And this takes some patience. You can't rush it to build it up slowly. Using a scribble technique. Just a slow build up, having lots of patience. Keep it consistent, keep it confident. Another sphere, talking about our light source coming from here.